Good Thursday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. A little later in the show, Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter, will be along. Talk plenty of Cavs as they are officially in the All-Star break, 4th place in the Eastern Conference. We begin by talking Browns. Pro Football Focus came out with their NFL quarterback rankings and tiers for 2022. Take a look at this. So the elite, Patrick Mahomes is number 1, Joe Burrow number 2, Josh Allen is number 3. Then we get into the bad tier. Russell Wilson 27, Marcus Mariota 28, Justin Fields 29, Davis Mills 30, Matt Ryan 31, Taylor Heineke 32. Down a little further, they refer to it as the ugly tier, where there is 33 Deshaun Watson, 34 Carson Wentz, 35 Desmond Ridder, 36 Baker Mayfield, 37 Zach Wilson. And they say Deshaun Watson played his first football game in 700 days and looked like it, showed flashes of his former self, but put up the least EPA per pass of any quarterback this year. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, you and I were talking. I got nothing for this one. I like what Pro Football Focus does, but come on.
Yeah, it's just this is where it becomes hard to believe that they're living by what they're supposed to be living by, right? And this is this ideal of unbiasedness. If they put out there, hey, we personally at Pro Football Focus have an objection to what Deshaun Watson's been accused of, and we are just going to rate him with a weight. Then just come out and say that. But like to expect me as a person who watches football, watch Deshaun Watson for 6 weeks, and then like expect me to hear, hey man, we think Marcus Mariota and Davis Mills were better than Deshaun Watson this year. That's just ridiculous. That is just, I have a hard time taking you serious after you blatantly lie to my face about a football that is publicly available for anybody who wants to pay for an NFL Plus subscription. So this is where I kind of like have to tell people, you're not helping anything by lying. Like, this is not helping anybody. And the only thing this is doing is honestly making it easier for Deshaun to redeem himself. If that's not your goal, you're actually helping, because what this does is makes it real easy to make the argument that Deshaun Watson should actually be most improved player next year. He should get comeback player of the year next year if he has a normal Deshaun Watson season, because what you're going to tell me is that he went from 33rd Baker Mayfield tier to around top 10 where he's always been in his career. So the inability to be serious sometimes and this is what happens with Pro Football Focus, and it's graded by people. People have their own personal beliefs, and that dips into everything that they do. And I'm not saying that everybody should be unbiased. I understand that people have their personal biases that they carry into it. But when you look at the paper and you see Deshaun Watson 33rd, you got to ask yourself some questions like, hey, do I actually think that this is justifiable? Or am I not saying anything because, nobody likes him at this point, even though I know this to be ridiculous? Because honestly, this just makes Pro Football Focus look bad. And if he has a good year, like he's probably going to have next year, it's going to make them look even worse.
So I know you've dealt with this. Do you think he has to be elite for the Browns to they gave up 3 first-round picks. They're paying him $230 million guaranteed. Does he have to be elite in 2023?
Yeah, he has to be Deshaun Watson again, right? Like, that just is what it is. We traded for not just Deshaun Watson of 2020. We paid more than what they were paying for Deshaun Watson of 2020. We're paying for improved upon Deshaun Watson of 2020. And look, this team's not so bad that they need elite quarterback play. The league is just so good that you need elite quarterback play. Did we watch the Super Bowl? Like, Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes are incredible. And Jalen Hurts played incredible, really good. But Pat Mahomes is on the other side, right? Like, that's the dude you have to beat. Pat Mahomes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around this. If you're the Cleveland Browns and your plan is to win the Super Bowl within the next 5 years, I don't really think it's possible to do that without playing Patrick Mahomes at one point in time. So you have to be able to get over that Patrick Mahomes bumps. And the only thing that's going to be able to get you over Patrick Mahomes is having an elite quarterback. You can't just have average or really, really good or almost elite. You need great, elite quarterback play to beat Pat Mahomes because, it's like when you're going up against the Bulls in the 90s, man. Like he's that level of player where it's like, hey, man, Craig Elo and Mark Price were really solid players. They had a good team in the 90s in the Cavs. Didn't matter, dog. It was Jordan. Like, that's just what it is. You're not going to get past Jordan with, like, good play. You need the best play. And that's what it's going to be required out of Deshaun Watson. He needs to be able to re-enter his name into that conversation of young quarterbacks instead of it just being Burrow and Mahomes and Burrow. It needs to be Mahomes, Burrow, and Watson again.
All right. You mentioned Patrick Mahomes, so take a look at this. Most yards after the catch in 2022. Number one, Kansas City Chiefs, 27, almost 2,800 yards after the catch. Number two, the Chargers. Number three, the Buccaneers with Tom Brady. Lions were 4. Cardinals were 5th. You see the Bengals and the 49ers. A lot of those teams, and the Eagles, those are the teams that went deep into the playoffs. Yards after the catch. All right, let's look at the bottom half of this. And the Browns, significantly, like half as much almost as the Chiefs. 28th, Steelers were behind them, Ravens behind them, Falcons and Bears. So bottom 5, not a playoff team. Not a playoff team in there. So point is, go get Deshaun Watson, the easy button. Go get him the guy that can get turn a 5-yard pass or a 2-yard pass into a 20, 25-yard gain.
Well, the interesting thing about that with Pat Mahomes is, like, he doesn't even have that guy anymore, right? Like, Tyreek Hill was that guy for him, and now he's throwing to, like Darius Toney, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not really like great names he's throwing it out there to. And I think that says more to, hey, spread it out. You know what I mean? What is allowing them to get that much yards after contact and yards after catch is that they're getting these guys the ball in space. How do you get the guys ball in space? You got to be able to spread things out convincingly. How can you be able to spread things out? Well, you need to be able to have your quarterback be comfortable in the system. Again, like, yes, wide receivers are going to be very important in this, and they probably should if they have the opportunity to go get a wide receiver in the price that makes sense. But also make sure Deshaun is as comfortable as possible, because I don't know what the 2020 numbers are, but I think he had pretty good yards after catch, and he was throwing to Chris Hansen. You know what I mean? Not that Chris Hansen, the other Chris Hansen. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
so
no, that Chris Hansen.
Yeah. So you could spread it out and allow these receivers a little bit more space, and I think that will clear things up. And a lot of this is just a transition, because if you look at, like, the guys at the top, guys at the bottom, I think Baltimore was probably the only playoff team at the bottom, and their quarterback was hurt most of the year, and they're coming out of that really regressive Greg Roman scheme. So a lot of this is about opening things up and being able to do that because you have a better quarterback. And that's what the Browns have to do. They have to be able to actually use Deshaun Watson effectively instead of putting Deshaun Watson in the offense that was meant for Jacoby Brissett to run.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. All right, without question, one of the areas Browns have to improve, defensive tackle. So let's take a look. These would be budget defensive line targets, defensive tackle targets for the Browns. Dalvin Tomlinson from the Vikings. Larry Ogunjobi, former Brown with Pittsburgh Steelers. Poona Ford, defensive tackle, Seattle Seahawks. Greg Gaines from the Los Angeles Rams. Ashawn Robinson, also Los Angeles Rams. Matt Ioannidis, Carolina Panthers. And again, Quincy, I think they probably would be better served getting a couple of defensive tackles as opposed to spending a significant chunk on one. They need the rotational pieces that they can keep running guys in. The other question is, do you think Jim Schwartz makes this defensive line better just by being the defensive coordinator?
Yeah, but somewhat, but like still, you want to add on top of that, right? You want to make his life a little bit easier. Um, it's going to be interesting, right? Larry Ogunjobi's an interesting guy because like he's been here before. I just don't know if that's where they go. But if they can't get anybody to rush opposite of Miles, it might make sense to go after a guy like Ogunjobi. Dalvin Tomlinson, somebody I've been banging the table for a while. Poona Ford, I mean, the best name out the bunch, right? And then there's Ashawn Robinson, who might be the most recognizable of them all. I believe he coming out of Alabama.
Yeah,
was he big time Alabama recruit?
Big
so
run stopper. That's what you
he's
like about him. Eats up double teams.
long and strong.
Yep,
long and strong. That's what you need, right? And then also the reality is like Perrion Winfrey's going to be in year 2. Whoever you draft's going to be in year 1. When you see these guys coming into the Senior Bowl, and I think this is the biggest difference between the NFL and college or any other level of football, is a big guy in college. Like I was looking at Keanu Benton. He's a big guy. You watch him at tape in Wisconsin, you're like, oh my gosh, he's huge. He measured at 300 pounds. He needs to be like 330 to be as big as he was in college in the NFL, right? Like that is a massive adjustment, right? Like Jordan Davis, you used to be able to point Jordan Davis out from a mile away at Georgia, and Georgia has giant players. You had to like tell me which player was Jordan Davis when the Eagles were playing. They are so big in this league at that line of scrimmage that it takes a while for those guys to bulk up to the size that they need to just be strong. I mean, it took Jordan Elliott to get like 3 years to get to where he needed to get. So, you need to get guys who are ready to play right now because that's a long developing position. So Ashawn Robinson, Matt Ioannidis is one that he's a decent pass rusher as well. Larry Ogunjobi, Dalvin Tomlinson. Luckily for the Browns, there's a lot of defensive tackles available in the draft. There's a lot of defensive tackles available in free agency, and they should look to plug this long time hole this offseason.
Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We're going to shift our focus a little bit to the edge position. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave Frank from Cleveland. I still say we should make a move for DeForest Buckner. Miles can rework his contract, give him a couple of fourth and a fifth rounder. I'm sure they want to dump his salary, but what do you think about that? Would you think that could happen? As always, Dave, be good, be safe. Love you, brother.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, that's a guy you've been banging the table for. I know you like him a lot.
This is the beauty of sports talk, right? I throw an ideal out there, it gets thrown out there so far that it actually gets thrown back at me and like, hey, what do you think about this? I would love the idea, actually. I kind of was the first person making a drum on this. But yeah, DeForest Buckner is one that I think would be interested in just length there. You want to be able to replace two things this offseason. The run defense ability and the pass rushing attention that Jadeveon Clowney brought you, since you're not bringing him back more than likely. DeForest Buckner does that, and he adds versatility, and he's not going to complain about having to move around on the defensive line. and all the other stuff that comes with Clowney, right? Like, I think that would be a good move. Length, size, you get the defensive tackle there, you make everybody's life easier. He gets to play well, you get to play well. I think it would be a win-win for everybody. He's expensive. He's going to come in at like $20 million. Maybe you can get him here, get him on a restructure, give him more guaranteed money for a couple of years, and get that cap number maybe down to like 10, 12 million. And I think you got something, but it's a more flexible option for an elite defensive tackle versus getting like a Payne who would be, you got to sign that free agent contract like in free agency, so that's going to be expensive off rip.
Yeah, Deron Payne you're talking about. And I don't think they're going to do 20, 25 million for a free agent because that's a bidding war. I don't think they're going to get into that. This is interesting as well. Next gen stats. This is from Seth Walder. Fastest average get-off time, so time to cross the line of scrimmage, for defensive linemen. So number one is Bryce Huff. 2/100ths of a second faster than Myles Garrett. So Garrett's second. Then you got Sweat, TJ Watt, Justin Houston, named to keep an eye out, currently of Baltimore. Then Hendrickson, Lawson, Von Miller, Yannick Ngakoue. You see his, 0.77, and Robert Quinn, 0.78. So the reason I show this, Quincy, when we're talking about guys to pair as a bookend, if you can find a guy that's almost as quick getting off the line of scrimmage as Myles Garrett and put him on the other side, you're going to create a whole lot of havoc, and that's Jim Schwartz's MO. Let's go create havoc at the line of scrimmage.
And the only reason Bryce Huff has a faster BGO than Myles Garrett is because Myles Garrett is tired of getting called offsides. He's not offsides. He's just on time, right? Because how many times did it happen where it's like, no way somebody can get the ball jumped off like that? It's like, it's Myles Garrett. He can just do that, right? But, yeah, I think that you want to have somebody with quick ball get off, just disruptive ability. Somebody's going to be able to create a ton of pressures, right? The guy who's rushing opposite of Myles, I think we're going to focus on the sack numbers too much, right? Where we're going to want to see the sack numbers be a certain level. I want to see the pressure numbers with that guy, right? Myles is the one where the sack numbers matter. Like, I don't care if the guy next to him has a bunch of pressures, but like maybe 6 sacks. The pressures matter because those lead into sacks when you have a cleanup guy like Myles Garrett. So that's what's important there. And a guy who can get off the ball quick is somebody who's going to be interesting. By the way, shout out Justin Houston. Still have one of the fastest get-offs in the league. He's like ancient at this point in his career. Yeah. That's impressive.
He has an AARP card, and he's still fast. All right.
He got legitimate veteran NFL benefits at this point from the union.
Yeah,
like that's a man who's been around.
Drawing a pension and fast enough to cash the check before the ink dries. All right. Every team's most involved or most improved player in 2022, according to Pro Football Focus. For the Browns, they go linebacker Deion Jones. His 2021 PFF grade, 34.6, 2022, 48.3. And they say it speaks to the struggles of the Browns defense that Jones, who finished the season the 74th ranked linebacker with that grade, was the player who improved the most on the roster in 2022. And those of us that watched every snap agree with that. Browns defense struggled.
Defense was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. And then, like, the players who did improve didn't stay healthy long enough for it to really, like, count. It was just it was a rough go. It was a rough go of it for the Browns defense. So, Deion Jones being the most improved player, you might as well just put nobody there at that point.
Doesn't apply. All right.
Yeah.
This is kind of interesting as well. So this is from Jack Duff, an Orange and Brown report. Does really good jobs with the cap and contract structure, salary cap. So when Andrew Berry signed Browns players to multi-year deals, some have included voidable years to spread out the signing bonus to the first full 5 years, and some haven't. Ones that do, Bitonio Teller, Johnson, Conklin, Hooper, and Njoku. The ones that don't, Chubb, Jakeem Grant, Hunt, and Troy Hill. It's kind of interesting. There's no not making any type of conclusion about that, just pointing it out, that Nick Chubb doesn't have the voidable years to spread out the signing bonus.
Yeah, and what that means is that Nick Chubb is ultimately going to be, when his contract gets closer to the end, which is actually coming up pretty soon here, he would be easier to move off of than those other guys who do have the void years, because then that brings in extra baggage when it comes to cutting them, because the dead cap number is not going to be zero for those guys until after multiple years after that contract expires. So, I mean, that's kind of how running backs get done. Is right. The NFL. Yep. Like, I would hope that Nick Chubb can have a 20-year career, but they usually don't bet on that. And it doesn't seem like the Browns front office is taking that bet, at least now. Now, this might be a Derrick Henry situation or a Zeke situation where they decide to get the contract late in the career, where they kind of bet on the player. And that has a varied track record of success. But yeah, as of right now, they're treating Nick Chubb like a very good but still a running back.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out other side of the break. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Take a look at some free agent edge rushers that are available. Sports for CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns Coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, this is John from Sandusky. Do you think there's any way possible that the Browns can get Eric Bieniemy to call the play call for our offense on the Cleveland Browns? Thank you for your time and have a great day.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, two things. I don't think Kevin Stefanski's given up play calling. And Eric Bieniemy probably, I can't believe he wasn't interviewed for head coaching jobs, but I don't think he's leaving Andy Reid and the Chiefs until he gets a head coaching job.
Yeah, it's just one, I don't think people are thinking of this one out through. We do this like it's Madden. Remember the last time we brought in an offensive coordinator that had nothing to do with the guy's offense who is supposed to be running the offense, the head coach, and then said, hey, make it work out. Remember the last two times we did that, Dave? It was Hugh Jackson and it was Todd Haley. That worked out for a couple weeks. And it was Freddie Kitchens and Todd Monken. Worked out great, right? Hall of Fame offenses both those years. So this ideal of we're just going to bring in somebody to have a hostile takeover of the offense when you have a coach that's hired for offense is just another way of saying you want the coach fired, but without having to have people be like, yo, why are you asking for the coach to be fired when he's clearly not going to be fired? It's just another way of asking.
Yeah. And again, let's see what Kevin Stefanski does. He's got Deshaun Watson. Let's see how the offense changes. I would expect it changes significantly. Do you expect it to be a pretty – I think they're going to throw the ball more, and I think they're going to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more spread out.
I would hope so. And look, I don't know what the details are going to be to this new offense, but here's what I do know. It's got to be good. The team's got to be good next year or else he is gone. That is ultimately what's going to happen is we can shout that he should do this, and that, all we want. The stakes are this. They need to make the playoffs this year and have an impressive showing when they get in there, right? Maybe they don't win a couple games. Maybe they win a game. Maybe they get to AFC Championship. Maybe they win the Super Bowl. I don't know. But they need to make the playoffs or else everybody is gone. So, I think that's kind of the stakes. Maybe Eric Bieniemy might be the head coach next year if they don't get it done this year in the playoffs. But it needs to get done in the playoffs. Like, it just needs to get done this year, and they need to get to the playoffs because there won't be any patience after that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's going to be fixed, though. Like, I don't think we're going to be worrying about this.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. But especially, this is it. I mean, you got your quarterback. It's an entire season. Get your offense in. Offense has to be good. All right. 33rd team. They are a group of former NFL executives, front office types, graded every AFC's team's 2022 season. The Browns get a D, along with the Titans and the Raiders. Broncos, Colts, and Texans got Fs, and all of their coaches got fired. So I guess relative to what was expected, a D is probably fair. C is passing, and what they did wasn't passing. I mean, there are reasons for it, but ultimately the season was not what you expected, not what I expected.
Yeah, but D seems fair. D seems pretty fair for a grade on the season. They had opportunities to execute, and that D's not just a grade for one element. If we're talking about the whole team, this team missed opportunities to win games, and when you do that, you get a D, right? Special teams, Cade York missed multiple opportunities to win games this year. Offense missed multiple opportunities. Defense, don't even have to say it. Don't even have to say it, right?
Hey, there's another wide receiver. There's another wide receiver.
Up 13 versus the Jets with 140 left. No timeouts, right? Like, they deserve the D. Everybody deserves to get a D this season. Offense, defense, offensive coach, defensive coach, head coach, offensive player, defensive player, star player, not star player, quarterback. All of them. They didn't play well enough. And the opportunities were there. Jacoby Brissett or not, the opportunities to win these games were there, and that's why they get a D, right? If they were just completely inept and then they scrambled 7 games together, hey, man, you might get a C for that. But you were clearly capable of winning more football games this year than 7. You just were not competent at certain points, and being below competence brings you to D.
All right, before we go to break, now we're going to look at some budget defensive ends that are going to be or expected to be free agents. Robert Quinn from the Eagles, that's one of the guys with one of the fastest get-offs the line of scrimmage. Yannick Ngakoue, another one that was in that list that has among the fastest get-offs in the league. Arden Key, young guy for the Jaguars that's kind of intriguing. Melvin Ingram, a guy that's an interesting veteran. Tyquan Lewis, and we stay with our former Browns motif, Carl Nassib. And again, we're trying to figure out guys that would fit into the budget because they're probably going to have to bring in at least 2 D tackles, maybe 2 edge, at least an edge. Do you like any of those guys? If so, who do you like there? I have one that I really like. I'll let you go first.
Oh, Nassib, man. He's still in the league. Good for him.
Yeah.
He was bouncing around a lot on a lot of different practice squads. I always liked him when he was here. Nice for him. And maybe he gets brought in. I don't think he would even be like you would project him to start if he got brought in, but he could be a nice rotational piece. I'm looking for length, to be honest with you. Length and maybe even youth on that side of the ball. Like, Robert Quinn, he seems like he could fit some of the holes that this team has, but I just think his time has passed. He wasn't really productive last year on either of the teams that he was on, and he hasn't been productive since about like 2021. So that's what I would lean more towards, but I'm interested to hear what you think.
I like Ngakoue. That's a guy that they kind of flirted around with and liked the last time in free agency, and it'll probably cost him a little bit more than Quinn would. But I think they may do that and then go a little bit more of the, I don't want to say lesser, but the less expensive free agents at D tackle.
That makes sense. I like Arden Key. He's somebody I think is very interesting. A young player, lighter edge rusher. I think that's the compliment to Miles, is somebody you can like, hey, if you want to put Miles inside, this guy outside shoulder, think about how useful Tack McKinley was for like the 5 weeks that we had him last year or the year before. And I think Arden Key can be an even better version of that. Former first-round pick, so he has the pedigree. I think he'd be very interesting. I think Arden Key, somebody I would take a look at.
Yeah, I anytime I watched a Jaguar game, there were 4 or 5 weeks, it's like, who is this guy Key? And yeah, he tends to show up on the defensive side of the ball. Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit about wide receivers. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I noticed a lot of talks about our offense and about how our wide receivers really don't get a lot of separation from cornerbacks or great cornerbacks. How about we adapt some SMU's offense where we give wide receivers option routes? That way, if the defender takes one thing, they have another route to run if that route is taken away. It seems complex, but I think in the NFL, it could be beneficial to our wide receivers. So if we give them options with their route, it will help our offense and give Deshaun better reads. Now, it might not work, but I think we should give it a try so that way Kevin knows and AVP knows this is going to help our offense. This is going to help Deshaun in the long run and help our wide receivers.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, I don't know that they're going to add option routes. I think they're going to add some RPOs. Might be option routes, but this offense will look different than it did, especially the passing game a season ago. I think it'll look very different.
Yeah, again, a lot of this, like, I think Jake Burns had the best tweet about this, where he was like, a lot of what we're going to talk about all offseason is, will Deshaun Watson be elite again? Because if the answer is yes, then a lot of the answers to these questions are, yeah, it's going to look like he did option routes. It was really a scramble drill, but maybe they did option routes. Or maybe we just don't care about what they do on the offensive side of the ball because it's working, right? That's what it boils down to. The offense has to be better next year, and they got to figure out more creative ways to do that. And I think that's going to be a combination of things. It might not just be one thing, right? Option routes might be a part of it, but this is going to be a lot of ingredients that go into this cake, which is this offense.
All right, let's take a look. This is from CBSSports.com. 15 players who could be on new teams via trade or as a cap casualty. We're going to look at wide receivers. So they have DeAndre Hopkins would be a trade only. You see the cap numbers, compensation. So if you trade for him, he's going to want some money. Number 2 on this list, wide receiver Michael Thomas. You see the cap number, but compensation just $2 million, hasn't been on the field in 2 years. So that's an intriguing one. Kenny Golladay. It has not worked out for Golladay. You see the cap number, what he's doing 2023. And then, we had DeAndre Hopkins. Here's another guy with ties to Deshaun Watson. Brandon Cooks, again, due $18.5 million potentially. These guys could all be cap casualties, could be traded for because, quite frankly, their cap number is a lot more than the team's going to want to pay them. When you look at those, who do you like out of that as an addition for Deshaun Watson in the offense?
If I'm just looking at it, DeAndre Hopkins makes sense. Maybe Brandon Cooks, but not at that number. It makes sense there. I think that maybe you don't like. The more and more I think about it, the more I look at the price of what it would cost to get some of those guys that are going to be available in the trade market. And then we know the free agent market's crazy for this. The more and more I think it makes less and less sense to trade for a big name, because you already do have Amari Cooper. You already have Donovan Peoples-Jones. What you're looking for is, somebody to complement rather than to beat a full tree, because they both almost had 1,000 yards apiece last year, and David Njoku was on track to get 1,000 yards before he got hurt. So I don't think you need somebody to come in and be the main course. You need complementary pieces, and I think that's going to come from, not the trade market. Maybe it comes from later in free agency. Maybe a DJ Shark ends up being that, depending on what kind of price he goes for. Or maybe you find a guy in the draft who's ready to go in that aspect. But I think that's going to be more or less what they're doing. I think we really want the topping on the dessert that is our wide receiver room, but we're forgetting we got a good base there to build off of. And while it would get us all excited to get D-Hop in here, I don't think that's necessarily, and we've learned this lesson over the last 3 years. What gets us excited in the offseason isn't necessarily what makes the team better. And that's the question I would start to have to ask is, how much of this is just going to get me excited for the season versus actually making the team better than they were before they make the trade? And if I'm looking at that, there's sacrifices that have to be made to get those guys in under the salary floor. And I don't know if those guys plus those subtractions are going to equal anything in the plus direction. It might just be we break even at best.
Yeah. Again, some of those guys and what they're going to want salary-wise will make that a challenge. All right, before I let you go, I know you've addressed this untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage. Draft prospects you think we should keep an eye on and an ear out for that might interest the Browns?
Okay, now I get to talk about Keanu Benton. I get to talk about a couple of the guys that I like from this year's draft. I would say there are a couple of offensive linemen I think would be interesting. Cody Mauch could be interesting for North Dakota State. He's a tackle prospect. I like, let me look at how to pronounce this young man's name because it was a very difficult pronunciation guide on him. Okay. Olusegun Oluwatimi from Michigan. Very good center. Would be interested to see where the Browns go. Maybe if they get a comp third, he's available there. You might have your center for the next 4 years. So as much as I love the edge talent, there are guys there that I like. There's Carl Brooks, I think, is another interesting guy out of Bowling Green. Yep. I thought he had a really good Senior Bowl. He's a local guy. He might get some looks here. Byron Young from Alabama is interesting. Keanu Benton, Mozzie Smith. I can go on all day. Jake Andrews is another center I like. Ryan Hayes is another tackle prospect I like. Marvin Mims, wide receiver prospect. If you're looking for that deep ball threat, averaged 20 yards per reception at Oklahoma this last year. Had no quarterback really throwing him the ball. Really produced, knows how to separate. I don't know what he's going to test for as far as his speed. That's the one thing I worry about with him, what his testing numbers are going to be, because I don't know if he's 4.3 fast, but he might just be 4.4 fast. But I think he has that skill to get open down field that he's going to be able to be a deep threat in the NFL. And he's also very good at getting those 50-50 balls at a smaller size. He's kind of Tyreek Hill-like in that quality where he's a small guy that can get up and get those 50-50 balls. Marvin Mims, I would say if you don't listen and pay attention to any of the names I said here, but for those of you who are mad that I don't want to add a wide receiver in free agency or in trades, Marvin Mims is the guy you want to look at. That's the guy I would tell y'all to look at for sure, is Marvin Mims.
Quincy Carrier, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem. You guys have a great day.
All right, Quincy Carrier, check him out. Untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage. Always really good stuff. We're going to turn our attention to the Cavaliers, officially on the All-Star break. Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers here on Sports4CLE. Take a look at this. So Kevin Love made a formal buyout request Wednesday, hours before the team's final game, first half, before the All-Star break. Wants to play, thinks he still can. Knows that's unlikely to happen in Cleveland. Now, two sides will work through the next steps. That tweet from Chris Fedor. Let's welcome in Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Chris, take us through what you know, what we know about Kevin Love and a potential buyout.
I mean, Kevin had been telling confidants, Dave, for the last week and a half that this was a distinct possibility because he wants to play and he was upset that he was completely removed from the rotation. Obviously, the Cavs thought they were doing what was best for them. JB Bickerstaff thought he was doing what was best for the team. But Kevin is a 34-year-old future Hall of Famer, 9 years in Cleveland, one-time NBA champion, a really, really important piece behind the scenes for the team. And he wants to play, and he thinks that he still can play. The Cavs see it a different kind of way. They think that they are better when Kevin is off the floor. And once Dean Wade returned from his injuries, there just wasn't a spot for Kevin to get consistent minutes. So they thought they were doing what was best for them and moving forward, at least in the short term, without Kevin in the rotation.
Is it likely that they come to an agreement for a buyout?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time. You know, it's interesting, Dave, because around this time of year, contending teams usually don't buy out trusted, respected veterans. They'll buy out the guys that create problems in the locker room. And Kevin wasn't doing that behind the scenes. His teammates loved him. He was celebrating on the bench when the Cavs were making threes or when they were having their defensive 3-second celebrations and things along those lines. But I just think the kind of run that he had here in Cleveland, the 9 years, and what he meant to the organization, what he meant to this team's turnaround, I think the Cavs are going to be amenable to a buyout. Now I think it's just the two sides working through the timing of it and how much Kevin is going to give back of the $28.9 million that he's making in the final year of a contract that he signed at the start of 2018, Dave, to be the face of the post-LeBron rebuild. And there were good moments during that time, and there were some pretty bad moments for Kevin Love during that time as well. But I think at the end of this, when you look back at his time with the Cavs, there was probably more good than bad. And because of the relationship built up between the two sides, I think the Cavs recognize that they're going to do right by Kevin, and they're going to recognize that he wants an opportunity to play on a playoff team. and they're going to give him that opportunity.
Well, and when you take it in that context that Kevin Love is likely leaving, it makes the signing of Danny Green a little bit maybe even a little bit more important, just because that's a guy who's been on 3 different championship teams. He talked yesterday before the game why he chose the Cavs.
We had some good discussions before, a couple of years ago actually, and this was before we knew how good they could be. They actually have grown since then, and I won't say we kept in touch, but I've always been watching them and what they've been doing, and their atmosphere, their culture seems to be really great, and they're doing some good things. So they had another opportunity to make it happen, and they were the most interested, which made it seem like it was a good fit, good spot for me, and a team that really wanted me and needed me. So, and I had a good opportunity to probably get some minutes on the floor with a team that's going to be in the playoffs. That was a big emphasis for me during that time. So these are one of the teams that fit that category, and they haven't let me down yet. So it's still early, but it's a great fit so far. The culture's great. They have it's a good group of kids, winning attitude, winning atmosphere.
And Chris, you were there during that availability. I know you wrote an article about it. Take us through Danny Green just coming back, how it came together.
Well, it's interesting because he had other options. Boston was interested. The Los Angeles Lakers, where he won his 3rd NBA championship, they were interested. The Phoenix Suns, playing alongside Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, they were interested as well. But the way that Danny said it is that, in 2021, when he was a free agent and his contract was up with the Philadelphia 76ers, the Cavs reached out. And the Cavs were at a different point at that time, obviously, Dave. They were, 22 wins. They weren't really thought to be this team on the rise or anything along those lines. Darius hadn't become an all-star yet. Evan Mobley hadn't even gotten here yet. So the Cavs reached out to Danny at that point in time and said, hey, we're interested. Are you interested? And he said, no, I'm going to stay in Philadelphia. I'm going to try and chase a championship and compete for playoffs. And here we are 2 years later. Danny becomes available because of the buyout situation, the relationship that he still has with members of this organization, including members of the front office, the prime decision makers. I think that played into it. And he sees an opportunity here. I'm not sure that I see the same one that he does, but he sees an opportunity to be a part of a team that can compete for the playoffs, and he believes he's going to have a role for a team that is going to compete for the playoffs. And the only thing that I keep going back to, and we've talked about this a lot, Dave, the top 8-9 guys in this rotation are set, unless JB Bickerstaff feels like there is reason to change that based on how a guy is playing. And that's the problem that Kevin Love ran into. Like, JB likes to play 8 or 9. That's what he's most comfortable doing. The 5 are set. It's Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Isaac Okoro, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. Everybody knows that. Then the next 4 are set too. Dean Wade, Ricky Rubio, Karis LeVert, and then Jetty Osman is kind of like the swing guy who's going to bounce between him and Lamar Stevens and Raul Neto, and now Danny Green as well. So I think the path for Danny getting consistent playing time with the Cavs is Karis losing a little bit of minutes, Jetty Osman losing a little bit of minutes, and maybe even Isaac Okoro losing some minutes. But it's not an easy path for him to get consistent playing time. And I think based on having conversations with Danny yesterday, he has an understanding of that, which I think is very important.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and you did ask him. You asked Danny Green what his role was here, and this is Green on that topic.
Kind of similar to what it was in Memphis, being that leader, just getting them to understand and mature, I guess, as fast as possible in a short amount of time. But what it takes to win games, especially in the playoffs, a lot of them don't have playoff experience. But yeah, come in, play some defense, knock some shots down, but teach, and especially the guys that have a lot of potential, like Isaiah. There's so many guys here, Lamar, Evan. There's so many guys that are young with a lot of potential. Ice is one of the guys for sure. I think I could, could be a good project to be a good 3-and-D guy in this league for a long time.
And he's referring to Isaac Okoro. Take us through, you also wrote something, Donovan Mitchell said he used to hate playing against Danny Green for the reasons that he's a perfect fit. Take us through that article as well.
Yeah, so Danny obviously has been very, very good in postseasons past with San Antonio, Toronto, Los Angeles. A part of the reason why the Cavs went out and got him, for the big moments, for the big shots. Him taking those shots instead of Isaac Okoro, right? Him taking those shots instead of Dean Wade or Jetty Osman. There's just a different feel, right? For a guy that's been there, done that, that's hit some of those shots. And Donovan Mitchell, before he was in the NBA, he was a LeBron fan, Dave. And everywhere LeBron went, Donovan followed. His fandom followed. So when LeBron was in Miami playing with the Heat, playing against Danny Green of the San Antonio Spurs, Danny was lighting them up from downtown. Like, he had one game in that series where he made 7 threes. He passed Ray Allen for the most threes in an NBA Finals series to that point. That's now been passed by Steph Curry. So Donovan, as just a fan of basketball, was watching that series, rooting for LeBron and the Heat, saying, who is this guy? Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is the guy that I've known since I was 11 years old, 12 years old. This is the guy whose brother I played against in AAU, and now he's lighting up LeBron in the Heat, and he's leading the Spurs to a championship over Miami, the team that I wanted to win. So, like, all of those moments that Danny has been in, experienced, felt, he knows how to handle situations in a way that some of these young players that the Cavs do not. And that's one of the things that the Cavs really, really like about this particular signing. Again, they don't know exactly how effective he's going to be. They don't know how healthy he's going to be. But just his presence and his understanding of what it takes in the biggest moments, that's something, as Greg Popovich said the other night, the Cavs can benefit from through osmosis.
Chris Fedor and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. Where are the Cavs here at the All-Star break? We'll hear from J.B. Bickerstaff. Still talking Cavs at the All-Star break with Chris Fedor. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Cavs with Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, even though the Cavs had won 7 straight games, and we, the fans, as well as the team, were hoping they'd go to Philadelphia and get another victory, this loss can be used as an eye-opener for the team. That they have to play 4 quarters of great defense to make a difference if your offense does not start out strong. The Cavs are close, but still need a few adjustments and play as a team for the full 4 quarters to get themselves ready for the playoffs. They have the talent, but they must utilize that talent to the full potential for them to be successful.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Chris, if the Cavs would have won that game, they would have been tied with the 76ers heading into the All-Star break. 76ers came out and went after it in a hurry. Were you surprised at all with the start of that game?
I mean, I was surprised that the Cavs allowed themselves to get rocked the way that they did by the 76ers early. I was not surprised, however, by the fact that the 76ers came out with that kind of attitude and that kind of statement to try and make. This is a team that is battle-tested. This is a team that has been there, done that. And this is a team that wants to hang on to their seeding in the Eastern Conference. And coming off a loss, 76ers lost to the Cavs earlier this year in Cleveland. And I think Philadelphia understands, hey, this is a team that we're probably going to be battling with for the 3 position in the Eastern Conference for the rest of the way. Number one, we've got to send a statement to them that not yet, Cavs. And number two, like, we can't let them win the season series, and we can't let them win the season series on our home court, because that could matter when it comes to seeding down the stretch. But the Cavs, it just took them a little bit longer to recover from that early haymaker than I thought it was going to take, than it has usually taken for the Cavs as well. So that was surprising to me. But the 76ers playing the way that they did, that didn't surprise me. And I think, Dave, if we're talking about the Cavs in the big picture, like, one of the things that people will hold against them, and if there are still detractors out there, they will say the Cavs beat up on the bad teams that they should beat up on, and they haven't found a way to consistently beat the upper echelon teams. Look, they're 23-7 this year against opponents that have a record below 500, and they're 15-16 against opponents with a record of 500 and above. And those are the kinds of teams that the Cavs are going to be seeing once they get into the playoffs. And they still have a lot to prove in that realm of, yeah, we can hang with those kinds of teams.
Yeah, the teams that are above 500, little things matter. Everything is magnified, and that's one of the things that the Cavs are going to have to figure out going forward. Jamie Bickerstaff talked yesterday about where the Cavs are headed into this All-Star break.
We're in a great spot. We've played a lot of games. You look at our upcoming schedule. We've got, besides, I think, that first back-to-back, most of our games, we have plenty of time in between, so we can be fresh for games. Our March is really spread out. I think our guys are figuring out exactly who we need to be successful, and, I think we're in a great place.
It's hard to argue with that, Chris. I mean, you don't like the way that Philadelphia game started. But they're 2 games behind the third place Philadelphia 76ers. And they're so young. So they're still, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could get third, second, or even the first seed if one of those teams falters.
I mean, that's how the things go when it comes to both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, Dave. If you put together a great week and a half, or you have a lousy week and a half, things can change in an instant. The standings are so jumbled together. Like, I understand Boston has been the best team in the Eastern Conference for most of this season. The Cavs are only 5 games back. So, like, if Boston goes on a losing streak at the time that the Cavs start surging, things start to change. And you can say the same thing about Milwaukee and Philadelphia as well. And there's one other thing that I think the Cavs have looked towards, even though they're not going to say it publicly. They have the 4th easiest schedule the rest of the way, in terms of the teams that they're playing against, in terms of the days off in between, in terms of fewer number of back-to-backs, in terms of home games versus road games. So just all of the factors that go into how a formula is made when it comes to strength of schedule. The Cavs have the 4th easiest one. And as we just talked about, they have shown that they know how to take advantage of the opportunities against lesser opponents when the schedule is favorable. They've done that all season long. So they are very, very primed based on that schedule, based on the current health of the team, and based on JB Bickerstaff landing on this consistent 8-9 rotation where everybody understands their role. Like, they are primed to make a big, big push here in the second half, the final couple months of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if they really put some heat on some of the teams in front of them in the Eastern Conference.
Before I let you go, who do you think is important to I don't want to say step up. Who needs to kind of continue to play well or even step up a little bit if the Cavs are going to reach their potential? And, the way Evan Mobley has played, I know the first half was a little rough. He's starting to figure it out on the offensive end. That's a bad thing for people that are facing the Cavs.
Yeah, I mean, he's starting to understand, get inside the paint. And I think his teammates, Dave, are starting to understand, let's get Evan the ball where he can be most comfortable, right? Let's get Evan the ball near the rim. Let's feed him because of all the things that he brings to us, both on the offensive end that sometimes go unseen and on the defensive end, playing like a defensive player of the year candidate. So it's nice to see him starting to put it all together. And once he starts having those kinds of stretches like he has had recently, you start to see the confidence increase, right? He's not as hesitant. He's taking shots in rhythm. He's not passing up open looks. And look, he was awful, absolutely awful in the first half last night against Philadelphia. But it was great to see a young guy take his lumps and come out in the second half and be great. Scored 21 of his 23 points in the second half in that kind of environment. That shows that he's got some bounce back in him, right? That shows that there's some maturity coming to his game and some confidence coming to his game. And he didn't allow the fact that he started 0 for 5 deter him from having a great second half. But to answer the first part of your question, I think it's pretty easy. I think it's pretty straightforward, and it's Caris LeVert. The Cavs hung on to him through the trade deadline because they believed that he was still their best option, because they didn't find a deal that they wanted to explore too heavily and give up the value that it was going to cost, and because the guys that they were most interested in at the trade deadline didn't end up getting traded. So there was nothing really that they could offer to make Brooklyn give them Royce O'Neal, or the Atlanta Hawks give them Bogdanovich, or the Detroit Pistons give them the other Bogdanovich. So Caris LeVert is here. He is playing about 28 to 30 minutes a night. He's got to give them more consistency on the offensive end, because the Cavs have the third lowest scoring bench in the NBA, and he's supposed to be the anchor of that.
Chris Fedor, as always, great stuff. Appreciate you taking some time with us, Chris. Thanks very much.
You got it, man. Anytime. Chris
Fedor, always great Cavs coverage. Check him out. Page of the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com as well. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.